everybody. Welcome, welcome. I have my dear brother Hiram with me today that I'm super excited to chat with. Hiram and I have this dynamic that we just kind of bounce off of each other, and it's almost like we ride some of the similar wavelengths mentally. And so then I'll say something and then he says something, and we tend to just go on this ride. So we'd been discussing maybe doing some videos together and seeing what happens as a result of us videoing some of these conversations. So today's conversation, we're talking about questions, specifically the question affirmations, but questions in general. And we're going to probably do some sort of a deep dive. I mean, that's what we typically do, but we'll see what actually just wants to authentically come out of us today. So this is kind of an experiment, but I really kind of hope it works out really great. So, because I love, love, love playing and exploring and tossing around ideas with Hiram. So thank you, Hiram, for being here with us. I really appreciate your time and space, your ideas and thoughts and wisdom and feedback, and all of that has been so important to me. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, you're welcome. And thanks for having me here. This is kind of fun. I always love the conversations that we get into, and it's a blast. I feel like I walk away learning so much more, having something to kind of process stuff with,
Hmm.
and expand and grow our awareness around some of these things. So,
Yeah.
so I'm super excited about that. I also feel like I'm a great candidate for even having this conversation because of where my level of understanding around questions is. So where I have a kind of a very basic understanding of that, um, I think that would be really great. One of the places I've sat with questions is I've kind of wondered, like, things will come into my space and then I'll either take them and incorporate them, or I'll kind of shelf them,
Hmm.
set them aside, like, okay, where I don't know enough about this, so it'll just sit on the shelf until I learn more about it, right? And that's kind of where questions have gone. They've kind
Okay.
of come in and then they're like, okay, let's just go up here on the shelf. And so as it sat here on the shelf, there's been other things that come in and then it goes up on the shelf next to it. And I'm getting a lot of stuff up on the shelf next to questions that I'm like, this needs to come off the shelf and come down into my life because it's really making a lot of sense up there. And so that's what I'm loving about this is that now we can take it and expand on I pull everything off the shelf and talk about it and start expanding on it, and we can go from there and just kind of see what comes up and where we can go with this.
I love it. I love it, love it, love it. So when you talk about being like, I'm guessing you're talking about being like a newbie to questions, right?
Yeah.
And the actual manifestation power that questions
Hmm.
naturally have.
Yeah.
So how long have you been playing with questions, just for our viewers?
I would say I haven't even really been playing with them as
Okay.
much as I've been aware of them.
Okay. So aware, but not actually using them in your daily life.
Yes.
Okay, great. Because you've had questions about them. You've had
Yeah.
questions about the questions.
And so therefore I'm using them.
Yes, you are, isn't it?
But I think we all are. We're all using questions all the time, whether we even realize it or not.
Hmm.
For example, I had an awareness. It was one of those things that just went and sat up on the shelf next to questions. Was what it felt like to me is that our judgments are actually questions.
Oh, say more.
They're it's like an ignorant subconscious question. It's like, because I don't know, I'm judging it. Therefore, I'm opening the doorway to have it shown to me, which is why
Mm.
we then go experience the things that we judge.
Oh, interesting. That's cool.
Right. And so that was just an interesting theory that just ended up sitting next to questions. And I'm like, I like that one. Let's keep that up there next to questions. And so, yeah, I don't know where I was going with that one, but yeah, I like the judgments.
Okay, so let's talk about, do you want to talk more about the judgments now, or do you want to get into that in a
No,
little
I
bit?
think that was enough on that one. It was just a little theory of like, hey, pay attention to your judgments because I think they're an open ended question.
It's like a question in disguise.
Yeah. It's your subconscious just saying, "Hey, how about we do this? Let's
Yeah.
talk, let's
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 experience this."
maybe dive into a little bit more of like how do we all use questions without even realizing it? Like
Yeah.
I kind of suspect, like you were saying, we're all using questions all the time. But I've been in the question world so long that I don't know if that's even accurate, right?
Yeah.
Like
I would say that we
I'm
are.
using questions all the time. But how would the average person be using questions, do you imagine?
Um, I don't have another one offhand. Do you have one?
I don't, but I was remembering my daughter messaged me just a couple days ago and she was like, "Is it important to actually ask the words of a question or is it just the energy?" And I'm like, well, primarily it's the energy, right? I think both ideally are best. But I wouldn't be surprised if most people are in this place of asking questions like, "Why is this happening to me?" That's one I hear a lot, right? "Why is this happening to me?"
Ooh, I
But it's
love
just
that.
that the type of question that they're asking can be a little bit not beneficial. It doesn't really serve.
So let's pick that one apart. That one's such a beautiful one. So if we
Okay.
pick the energy of that apart, why is this happening to me? It's
Yep.
a way of opening up the void, which is what the question does, right? Opens up the void for our experience. And what are we going to experience? We're going to experience the feeling we're feeling from that question, which is
Right.
why is this happening to me? Therefore, we open the void and we go experience more of that same feeling.
Hmm. Yeah. Of the why is this happening? So you open up
Okay.
the void and call in more of that feeling of to me, why is this happening to me is very victim energy. And so then because the question, so let's talk about this piece. Questions literally create a void,
Yes.
right? You want to talk about that or should I?
Go ahead. I'll add to it if something.
Yeah, for sure. So my experience of asking questions is kind of like asking a question creates some sort of a vacuum in space between me and the thing I'm asking the question about. And so if I'm asking that question like, why is this happening to me? I'm literally calling in more of why is this happening to me because I create that vacuum inside of myself. It's like a sucking in kind of a feeling. But if I also can ask like a question like, how amazing can my life be? Then I'm going to vacuum or pull in that experience into my life.
Hmm. Yeah, and that makes sense to me. But I'm wondering, like, kind of the science behind why.
Mm.
Why would you pull in that?
Well, it's a
Uh,
frequency, right?
okay, yeah. And so here's what just came into me is like when you see two tuning forks that will vibrate together.
Hmm.
If you hit one tuning fork, this one that's at the same frequency will then vibrate.
Right. That's actually how they tune a piano. Did you know that?
Really,
Yeah.
with
They
tuning
use
forks.
tuning forks. If I remember right, it's been a lot of years since I watched this happen, so I could be remembered a little bit wrong. But they use the tuning forks and put it right next, or something that tunes like a tuning fork, and then
Uh,
they tap it and they tune the piano with it. But I don't count. Don't what I
okay,
can't think of the word I'm looking for. I
I know.
could be remembering it wrong, so I might not be right on that one. But I know they use tuning forks in like energy with the body and with each
Yeah.
other and
And so with each other, you can like say you have one that's vibrating at 434. Is it 434? Now I've lost which one it is. 440 is like the not good.
480. Yeah, I don't
No,
know.
it's like it's whatever. So, but like say 528 hertz or something, right? Then this tuning fork, say they're both 528 hertz. If you ding this one will vibrate
Hmm.
just because it's in the frequency of the other tuning fork. But if
Okay,
you put
cool.
a 440 hertz or 434 hertz here next to a 528 and you ding this one won't vibrate
Yeah.
because it's a
Okay.
different frequency.
It's a different frequency.
Yeah. And so that's how we attract the things into our life too. Because we literally will vibrate that frequency and more of it will come in
Yeah.
connect because it will vibrate. Now that's what causes movement and brings things together.
Right. And so let's take our example of why is this happening to me? If I'm asking that question, why is this happening to me? Then I'm vibrating at the frequency of victim, which
Yeah.
means I'm going to literally be tuning or looking out there for that other match of vibration that is also victim, and that's the experience I'm going to call forth so that I can continue to validate my why is this happening to me frequency.
Yeah.
I love that analogy.
Yeah. I like that too. And it's just the way that the universe says yes to
Yes.
all things. It's the only answer it has.
Yeah. I love like the quote, ask and you shall receive. Like I have found that to be probably one of the most true statements I've ever heard as I've started exploring questions, because it's like
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what the question is you're asking, you're literally going to call forth the experience of the answer.
Yeah. Because it's almost as if asking opens the void and the receiving is what the universe fills the void with.
Right.
Ask and the universe will fill in that void, that question, with what you're asking about.
Yeah. So for me personally, this encourages me to ask the type of questions that I really want to be a match for out the other end, Like how good can it get? Like I like things good, easy, fast, and fun. I like them to be very fulfilling and deep and magical too.
That makes sense. I mean, those are all the good things.
Those are all the goodies, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll just use the word goodies too, because I know what goodies means, right? And so I'll
That
ask a
creates a
question with
frequency.
that. Hmm?
That creates a frequency for you.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
So another angle that we could take this is more into the core story stuff,
Yes.
core story work. Okay, so you had mentioned earlier today off camera about talking about exploring questions with core story work.
Hmm.
So I have a thing that I'd like to bring up, and then let's just talk about that.
Okay.
Okay,
Shoot.
so I had a conversation with Amy just a little bit ago, and something came up where she was asking me if I was nervous about having this call,
Hmm.
and I was like, no, 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 I'm not nervous at all, And then I stopped for a minute. I'm like, well, wait a minute, let me think about that, because I've been questioning everything in my reality ever since I started doing some core story work.
Right.
Let's just, instead of just brushing it aside, let me look. And so I'm like,
You're starting to face versus
yeah,
avoid.
yeah. And I'm like, yeah, there is some nervousness. I do have some nervousness. Okay, this is good that I can see this. So, yeah, I guess I am a little nervous. That sounds great. Okay, so let's sit with that. And so I wanted to bring that up as a question, because what I find is that I am generally nervous about any types of interactions with people, or that's kind of generic, but anything like social media, online, and online
Mhm.
presence, or recording, or anything of that sort, right? So
Yeah.
I do deal with some nervousness around that. And then before we go into that, I had a side thought as I was sitting with it that came in. And
Okay.
one of the things that came in was like, well, nervousness is just excitement labeled differently. Like we've heard that, right?
Right. Right.
And as I started to feel the nervousness, I was like, it's not excitement. It's just not. It's not the same thing. Even, you know what I mean?
I'm laughing because I've had a very similar experience many, many times. People will say, the Hendricks used to talk about fear is excitement without breath. And I'm
Yeah.
like, so I took that on and I like to experiment with anything before I just believe it, right?
Yeah.
And that might be true for them, but it sure as heck does not feel true for me. Like, does it live in the same part of my body, the energy of fear versus excitement?
Mhm.
Yeah, it lives in the same part of my body. I've tried breathing with it. I've tried changing the story. I've tried having no story. Fear for me still feels like fear.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would be curious to see what other people feel, right? Because maybe they experience it different than me, or maybe I'm not getting a piece. I don't know. But
Yeah.
yeah, it still feels like fear to me too.
Yeah. So as I sat and just felt the nervousness, I was like, yeah, it's not honoring to nervousness for
Oh,
me to call it excitement.
Oh,
and ignore it.
that's like twins and being called one and not the
Yeah. And it's like,
other.
just because you guys look alike doesn't mean you're the same person, and
Oh,
so,
yeah.
and one's good and one's bad, and it's like it just wasn't honoring the feeling,
Hmm.
and so I just
Did it
sat with it
almost
and felt it.
did it almost feel like that by labeling it as such or trying to make it be excitement instead, it was sort of like a running
Pushing
away
away.
from it or trying to
Yeah.
change it
Mhm.
somehow?
Yep.
Yeah.
I was running away from it. I was pushing it away. Um, yeah, it just felt like I wasn't there recognizing it for what it was,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I can see that.
Yeah. And it's
I
just,
love this perspective of honoring it, right? Like there's nothing wrong with fear.
yeah,
Nothing wrong with fear. So if there's nothing wrong with fear, why can't we just be with it as it is without needing to change it or fix it
totally.
or turn it into excitement?
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you for that perspective.
hmm So then, okay, so now let's jump into that question.
Okay.
I still am human and would like to not have nervousness and fear around. I guess it's more fear than nervousness, but they're kind of, fear and nervousness are kind of similar, um, in my own mind. Like, nervousness is a way of labeling out fear,
hmm
because it's, yeah. Anyway, that's kind of a different thought. But yeah, let's go into that question more.
Yeah.
So, with nervousness or fear of speaking in public, or fear of any of that, I'll just label it as nervousness because that's what's working in my body.
Right.
What kind of questions could I ask to bring in more awareness around that? And I've also got to be careful that I'm not asking the question to change the nervousness,
Yes, yes,
because I
yes,
don't
yes.
want to change it.
Right, because the thing is we can use questions against ourselves, right?
Yeah,
Like you could be like, "Oh, I don't want to be nervous anymore. I want to be confident on camera." So then I got to ask some questions to change the nervousness, and that's not the whole reason we're doing questions, right? So I loved your question asking about this, right? So what thought popped in for me or what question popped in for me is to ask a question like, how can I fully embrace my fear and still show up confidently and be of service to others? Something towards that, along those lines.
what was the second half? I'm trying to feel it.
Yes. Well, hopefully I can say it again. But how can I fully embrace my fear, maybe even in such a way that I can still show up confidently and be of service to others?
Yeah. And that feels good. um yeah, at least it starts the foot in the right direction
Right.
of separating, confidence and, um nervousness,
hmm
separating them from being opposites,
Yes.
right? Because they're not opposites.
No.
But in my mind, there can be this story of like, okay, if I'm nervous, I'm not confident,
Right.
right?
And I think society has kind of taught us that with fear, being afraid of fear, is that if you're afraid, then you know what I mean. You got to power through it, or you got to whatever, push yourself beyond the fear. But what if the fear is actually the doorway to your confidence, right? Oh, there's a good question. What if fear is actually my doorway to confidence? Can I
Mm,
face into this fear and fully, from a place of consciousness, to be able to
yeah.
move through, right, and get to what's on the other side? What if there are gifts outside the other door of fear?
Mm, hmm. Yeah. So what if fully, or what if feeling and embracing fear is the doorway to my confidence?
Oh, I love it. Yes.
Yeah. And then also, like you said, maybe there's more things that I'll just, what if there's even more things that I can't see when I go through that doorway
Right.
that are even better than confidence?
That are even better than confidence. Yeah.
And
Right.
that's what else is behind that door.
Right. What else is beyond the door of
The
my
fear
fear?
was the fear was standing in front of, blocking
Oh,
for
I
me.
love it, love it, love it so much. Yes, 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 yes. And by our shutting the door to fear or avoiding fear, we're limiting the
Like
amount
the
of
whole thing.
goodies.
Oh, yeah. Like how much possibility is back behind that door?
Right. And how many
Yeah,
questions have we
so sure.
already asked? How many questions have we already asked around fear, right? That could
Mhm.
actually be a potential movement forward with fear.
Yeah.
And then fear can become your friend instead of your enemy.
Which is what it's starting to feel like.
Nice.
Feels like it feels like there's um that if fear is the doorway, then it's like, hey, like I'm reaching a point where I'm actually grateful you're a doorway.
Mm,
Because without you being a doorway, how do I even get through?
yeah.
So there's even gratitude for like, okay, this is even here so that we can even ask this, so that we can even get there and get to all these other awarenesses.
Yeah. So then you could ask questions like, what huge gift is this fear for me? What do I
Hmm.
not even know how to ask about this fear yet? Right? Like, what what could happen with this fear that's even greater than I even know how to ask?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. What more can come from, yeah, what more am I not even aware of
Yeah.
that fear can show me?
Yeah. That fear could show me.
Yeah.
How
And
much
then
could I embrace my fear?
I'm starting to feel it into like all avenues of my life, not just one area, but like
Mm-hmm.
the more questions we ask around it, the more I'm feeling like, okay, this is expanding into new areas of my life that I want to allow it to expand into.
Did
You know,
did any pop in that you can share?
um, well, it's like at first it was I was just kind of holding it around like this call or being on a recording of this sort or any types of Zoom calls, but it expands into I have nervousness around like in social settings,
Mm-hmm.
like what's expected out of me,
Oh yeah.
which falls into some of my mechanisms of like if I show up at a group of people, my first wonderment would be how do I need to show up for them?
Oh.
Which is like completely backwards of the
Which is
way
one of those questions, which is one of those questions you may have asked subconsciously for many years.
I have. True, good point. And so let's see where that one's held me stuck.
Awesome.
So um let's see, what was it? How can I show up? Essentially, how can I show up for everybody else? But um how do they need me to show up?
Yeah.
Is kind of the basics of that question. How do I need to show up for them? And how does that keep me stuck?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm never going to know what they need or what their expectations are. And it's going to pull me away from my path
mm,
and totally pull me away from where consciousness wants to come through me and be birthed. It's going to just completely pull me away from that
mm-hmm.
into what do they need and how can I birth consciousness through them.
What do they need, and how can I birth consciousness through somebody who doesn't even know that I'm trying to birth consciousness through them, or doesn't even
Yeah,
hasn't even
right.
asked for my help, doesn't even know they need my help,
Yeah.
or need me to show up in a certain way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and a lot of this is like subconscious thinking. Like I don't even think these things. This
No,
is
for
just like
sure.
it's just subconscious programming.
Mm-hmm.
But I did notice the other day that my service was coming from mechanism,
Mm.
you
Can
know?
you talk
And
about that?
yeah, what I noticed was that I would serve because it was I could get a little tiny bit of love
Mhm.
from serving. And it was almost a way of like, I mean, who doesn't want to be served?
Right.
So it's almost manipulative. Like I'm going to kind of show up and serve you, but I'm going to steal some love through that process,
Yeah.
you know? And so it's just a way I was showing up in service to, um, to get some of my needs met
Yeah.
because I need some love in this world, right? We all do.
Yeah, we all do. We all want it. And it's like if I can't does if I don't know how to get it, I'm gonna get it in manipulative and destructive ways.
Yeah.
But the thing is that's not very satisfying.
No, well, it was somewhat satisfying.
Yeah, but was it really satisfying or was it
It's
only
not. It's
somewhat
not
satisfying?
fully. It's not fully embracing satisfying.
Right.
Like, what it wasn't. It wasn't thriving,
Yes.
but it was satisfying.
Okay. So that's the distinction. For
That's
me, that is satisfying is one of those words that is like thriving to me.
oh, I guess it's kind of a relative term, or
Probably is. Yeah.
because if I'm living, I've lived a lot of my life where I'm like, eh, I could be satisfied with this,
Oh,
and
yeah,
that
I
was,
see that.
and I won't die.
Right. So it's like I'm going to manipulate my way around to get
Yeah,
whatever love I can so that at least I won't die.
yeah,
Yeah. And
essentially, yeah.
I think a lot of relationships, at least as I've, supported people with their relationships over the years,
Mhm.
I see this so much. And it's like I'm willing to do this mechanism just so that I can get crumbs,
Yeah,
so that I just won't die. So I can barely stay alive.
yeah,
That's not deeply fulfilling and thriving.
yeah. No, not at all. And so I've learned through the years a little bit more about giving to myself and learning like, oh, okay, I can give love to me, but I still noticed that a lot of my service was coming from mechanism.
Mm,
It was just habits.
yep.
Just this is what we do. We get love this way. This is a great thing to give to everybody and receive love in return. Like, how perfect's that?
Right.
You
Yep.
know?
And again, this is pushed in society. This is what we've been taught, from the
Yeah.
time we are little, like sacrifice all your desires, give to everybody else.
Mm,
And sacrificing is one of the best ways you can do all this, right? Which is kind of ass backwards.
yep. Yeah, it is. So then service is also this thing that opens up the void.
Talk
Okay.
about that because we had a little bit of a conversation with this one
Yeah.
already, and I was like, "Oh yeah, Harm, this is good."
Yeah. And so I love this one because I'm such a service oriented person, which is why it turned into my default mechanism
Right.
because I love services as it is.
Can I
So,
interrupt you right there before you go
yeah.
into this? Because I want to say something. Like I've noticed this so much lately, especially, is that we literally choose our mechanisms based off of what we're already gifted with,
Mm.
right?
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like when we move out of mechanism, a lot of our actions are going to stay the same. It's just the come from is different.
Yeah. That
It's
makes
not that
sense.
your actions will be different. You're still going to be serving people because
Yeah.
that's who Hiram is, right?
Yep.
Still going to be serving. It's just your come from is going to be different. So it's going to be more of that thriving feeling that you actually desire.
Yeah. I love that. Which leads into the whole service thing. That
Okay, good. Talk about it.
so service opens up a void, and that void, all voids get filled in the universe because it's just what it is. Once a void gets open,
It's like it creates like a vacuum.
yep, life comes into it. And
Hmm.
whatever life is, which is the expansion of the universe, it fills in that void, right? And so that's what service will do, unless we fill it first.
Hmm.
So with me giving and then receiving for it, I'm filling that void. So I open up a void with service and I hurry and fill it with a little bit of love.
With crumbs.
Yeah, with crumbs. Ah, okay, got it.
Okay, at least I'm alive. At
Yeah,
least I'm alive. And that's literally answering or feeding that void.
yep, yeah. And so if I give from a place of like, I'm not even needing any love from there. I'm just giving.
I'm just giving to freely
Yeah.
give.
I noticed a need. and so I'm giving.
Yeah.
And that's a completely different service space
Mhm.
to, I'm not doing it because I've been taught to serve and that the people who serve are rewarded in
Heaven.
whatever kingdom to come, or it's none of that. It's just I'm giving because I see a need.
Yeah, because I see a need.
And yeah, and then the natural consequence of that is that hole or that void that I create gets filled in.
Mhm. Mhm.
Now if I give because I know that the universe is going to fill this hole in, well, I just filled it with expectation.
Yep.
And now the universe has nowhere to put it. So it's full and it can't give anymore.
Right. It ceases to be that vacuum.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I kill that vacuum by filling it full of expectation. So I
Mhm.
truly can only give from a space of giving.
Authentic. This is
Authentic,
what I
full.
would call unconditional giving. It's just a giving space.
Yeah, I can't manipulate it. I can't manipulate the universe.
Thank God.
Yeah.
If you could manipulate it, basically that's answering your own question. You see, it ceases to be the vacuum,
Yeah. Yep.
right?
And that's not the mentality we would want in the universe anyway. And so
Right. For
and so
sure.
it works perfect.
Yeah.
And I just love being able to see it and kind of see from that perspective of like, okay, here's how we give, and this is why we give.
Yeah.
We give because it feels good to see
Feels
someone
good
else.
to give.
Feels good to give.
It does. It feels good to give if we're not giving from mechanism, because giving can totally be our mechanism.
Yeah.
And what differentiates a mechanism that I've been finding is when I'm trying to get something. If I'm doing something to try to get something, then it
Yeah.
becomes a mechanism. And you mentioned this one earlier today too, off camera, that you have found is that also if you're, how did you word it, labeling it, like
If
if you
it
need
if
it to
it
be
means
something,
something.
if
Yep.
it means something.
If you're doing something, or if you're getting something, if anything means anything to you,
Hmm.
then it's a mechanism. It's
Yeah.
an indication that it could be a mechanism.
Yeah.
Like if you well, the conversation we were having about was like if somebody's having sex and they if it means something to them, like because you're having sex with me that means you love me,
Right.
that's a mechanism.
Right.
Or if because you're not having sex with me that means you don't love me, mechanism.
Yeah. And
So anytime yeah,
the reason is that I see is because it's ego.
yeah,
And the mechanisms all happen in the realm of ego. Anytime we have to identify something to get us to feel a certain way, or you know what I mean, we were trying to get something, right? So I'm going to treat you a certain way so that I can get something, or when you treat me a certain way then that means I got something. And it's all kind of the same thing, and it's all mechanism, it's all ego, it doesn't really produce the results that we're looking to have because it's not what's authentic.
yeah. So speaking of ego, let's dive into ego a little.
Okay, I do want to bring up the correlating piece of questions and not answering questions. And then can we dive into ego? Or
Yeah,
does this need to happen first?
it might, if you can remember yours. I don't know
Okay.
if you can remember mine because it's starting
Okay.
to fade.
You go first then.
Okay. So here's what I'm just seeing with ego is that there's a lot of pushing ego away because it's bad, sick, and wrong.
Yep.
And so some of the practice of the core story is just be done pushing stuff away and let's
Mhm.
invite it in and
Be
sit
with
with
it.
it,
See
have
what's
tea
there.
with it. Yeah, let's
What did you say?
have tea with it. Let's
Oh,
talk with
yes.
it. Let's not push things away. Let's invite them in, right? And so one of the things that I've seen with ego is that ego is like the hungry wolf that's going out trying to gather everything that the person needs and turn it into a habit.
Mm,
And so it's all based off of everything we've been doing thus far.
yeah.
So if we've been living a victim, then the ego's out there trying to validate all this stuff for victimness,
Hmm.
gather those experiences up and feed them back to us. right? But once we start to, and this is just a theory, my theory is that once we shift our reality into more of a place where we naturally are doing like the core story work and we're learning and growing and we're not pushing stuff away, our ego will jump on board with that.
Mm.
And it will start to like grab this stuff subconsciously for us and pull it in. Like, here, this is what you're looking for, right?
Hmm.
It's like our friend.
It becomes a friend instead of an enemy.
Well, it's always been a friend. It's
Oh
just,
yeah, because it's always been trying to help us survive.
yeah, it's always been grabbing whatever we've been putting in our cart. And it's like, oh, I can get some more of that for you. And it's out there grabbing and pulling in more of those things, And
Beautiful perspective. I like it.
so we don't have to push it away. We've just got to
Right.
know it's only out there trying to maximize and fill our cart up with what we've been putting in there.
Right. And the thing is it's, at least my perspective is that it's pretty impossible to push the ego away.
Right?
Right. In the same way that it's impossible to push your emotions away.
Yeah.
You might think you've pushed them away, but they haven't gone very far. They've just lodged themselves in your body. Right. They're just
Uh-huh.
gone to your
Yeah.
perspective, and that's about it. They're still there, very much so, and they are running the show.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, I love, 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 love that. I have become such a fan of facing what's occurring versus
Mhm.
running from it.
Yeah. I'm learning the same thing.
Yeah, and fully being present with it. And it's amazing how everything changes here in my perspective, right? My
Hmm.
perception of emotion, of ego, of everything I've judged as bad, judgment, right?
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
what if what if none of it's bad?
Yeah.
What if judgment's not bad? What if ego's not bad? What if darkness isn't bad? What if shadow work isn't bad? What if whatever? What if none of it is bad? And we've just had a perspective that it's bad, therefore that's what the experiences are that we get to keep calling forth. And what if the moment that we sit with them and discover, oh, you're not the bad guy, right? You're not the
Uh-huh.
bad guy. Whoa, what does that make me? Am I the bad guy? What if nobody's the bad guy? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And
What
it
if the
changes
bad guy?
everything.
What
Huh?
if the bad guy is not even the bad guy?
I know.
Like, yeah. What if? What if? Yeah, it's hard to even put that one into perspective. But what if bad isn't even bad?
Yeah.
Like,
What if bad has just got messages in there for you that when you're willing to look at, it's going to blossom into something that's beautiful.
totally. Yeah.
I mean, so much has been able to change for me in my life since I have started being
Mhm.
able to be with things instead of pushing them away because I've judged them as bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. So
You
anyway, let's, huh?
was? You remember what your thought was?
Yeah. I want to talk about how questions also create the void and
Hmm.
how best not to answer our questions, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So
So,
again, I think we do this very naturally as humans. Like, you'll be like, well, how can I walk in this room and make sure that this person's needs are met, right? But you don't in your mind think, well, I can do da 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 da, right? You just walk into that room, and then those are the experiences that are had.
yeah.
And the thing I'm inviting people to do with the question affirmations is the same thing, the same approach. Ask the questions, but be a little more conscious about the questions you're asking, right? Like, how
Hmm.
could I show up in this room and fully embody my authentic self and have that create the close connections that I truly desire? Right? Like, a question like that might be a little bit more attractive.
Yeah. Let's use some of me as an example.
Okay.
Okay. So here's an example. I walk into a room. There's a few different places to sit down. There's a bunch of people in the room. There's couches, chairs, the floor, all kinds of things like that. Right. My first thought when I walk in there is, where am I supposed to sit? Okay.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, I would love to not have that thought. I would love it if that wasn't my thought, but I'm just being honest, and that's generally the type of insecure feelings that I run in social settings. Is, what am I supposed to be doing right here?
Yeah.
And so, uh, a good question for me to ask might be, um, where would be the most comfortable place for me,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think that by just shifting the questions I'm asking, I'll shift my levels of security.
Mm,
Because the first question is like, where am I supposed to sit? I've got
right.
to take into account everybody's belief systems about whether I should be sitting in their chair or not. Whether somebody else has been sitting there and expects to be coming back and sitting in their same spot. I've got to worry about the people I'm sitting next to. Do they want me there or not? Like, there's a lot of factors that go into worrying about everybody else.
Yeah.
But if I just went and found the most comfortable place for me,
Right.
you know,
And then dealt with whatever came up when it came up,
yeah,
instead of projecting yourself into a supposed future, trying
uh-huh.
to solve all the problems ahead of time. That sounds like social anxiety to me.
Because the truth is, I could walk in and sit down next to two people having a conversation, and then all of a sudden feel very much like I intruded upon that conversation, and it would be best if I got up and walked away.
Hmm.
Okay, well, I could honor that. But
Yeah.
if I'm sitting in insecurity and I sat down there and it took a lot of bravery to just sit down there, then I might get stubborn and like, no, I took a lot to get me to sit here. So I'm just going to stay sitting here and hope this goes away.
And then feel really awkward and
And
uncomfortable.
then it's just worse and worse and worse and worse. Right.
Hmm.
Because I did it out of some type of mechanism,
Yeah.
you
Yep.
know, rather than just honoring what was for me and choosing what works best for me.
Yeah. And then handling the situation in the
Yeah.
future. Yeah. When
Yeah.
it presents itself.
Yeah.
I love it. Or if somebody was sitting in that chair and they came back, then maybe you'd have the conversation at that point. But here's where I think the ego jumps in is that we make that mean something about us. Yeah, I
Mhm.
interrupted their conversation. Well, what does that mean about me? Oh my goodness, I might be da 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 da, right? And so, in order
Uh-huh.
to avoid the na in our brain, you
Yeah.
know, then we got to figure it out. Oh no, I did it wrong. And if I'm judging myself that way, then everybody else must be judging me that way. And we make up all these stories about what everything means. And it
Yeah.
doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean any of it.
Right.
Even if they made up the stories, even if they're judging you, doesn't mean it's true.
Hmm.
Right. But I think we can also get very afraid of receiving judgment from other people because we're so desperate to have those crumbs.
Hmm. Yeah.
And when we're desperate for crumbs, we will do almost anything or not do anything to try to get those crumbs.
Yeah. So for me, safety in a situation like that is to avoid it,
Hmm.
because I know what I'm supposed to do all day long.
Right.
It's when I interact with another human, we might run into some issues.
I might not know how to act. Yeah. So it's easier just to avoid and not put yourself in those situations at all, which
Yeah.
I totally see that.
Yeah. Which is where I've learned how to avoid a lot of things.
Right. Which has been a really great survival mechanism, I imagine.
Oh yeah.
I
Oh
mean,
yeah. Kept
I
me
know
out
at
of so
home.
many situations.
Yeah. Yeah. It probably has kept you out of so much trouble.
Kept me out of a lot of trouble as a child.
Uh-huh.
As an adult, it kept me out of a lot of possible uncomfortable situations.
Hmm.
What it also kept me out of was a lot of possibilities,
Yeah. Yep.
like tons of possibilities.
Yeah. That
Yeah.
interacting with other humans gives you.
Which is kind of what we do down here.
Yep. Is interact with each other.
Uh
Yeah.
huh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I can definitely relate with you too, Hiram, as I've had a lot of social stuff throughout my life as well.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of other people on this planet that do as well.
Yeah. And it's something that, like, I've worked with it a lot. I've come a long way. I'm not as bad as some of the examples I make up, but they still pop in.
Yeah.
They still pop into my head, and I'm like, but that's where I was doing the same thing that I did with the nervousness earlier today,
Mm.
right? And
Yeah.
so the nervousness, I just pushed away. Nope, I'm not nervous. I'm not nervous. I'm not nervous. I'm not nervous. There, a couple breaths. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Nervousness is at bay. Right? But there's a completely different path, which I'm loving going this other path of feeling our feelings.
Yeah.
So I've done the same thing with some of the social anxiety situations that I would find. I might come into a thought and it's like, no, 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 nope, don't worry about that, don't worry about that, doesn't matter, doesn't matter, everything's perfect in the world, just take a seat. Right?
Don't want to look at you right now.
Yeah, and so I push it all away and then go sit down,
Yeah.
in a scenario like that where I'm looking for a place to sit or something. um but yeah, I mean, there's just a lot with that. And I think it just gives me another avenue to explore where I'm feeling those instead of pushing them away.
Yeah. You're being present with them,
Yeah.
showing up with them, fully conscious that they are by your side. That fear is right here.
Yeah.
You're arm in arm walking into that room with that fear,
Yeah.
instead of like, nope, no fear exists. Push it behind you. No fear exists. No, go back there. Go back there. Okay. Safely. No fear. I'm good.
So then bringing back to the questions, this is where the questions can help us shift that energy of how can this actually be a really good reward for or how
Mm,
can this really show up and serve me? How can this be my friend through this situation? How
yeah.
can my fear of this really bless me today?
Yeah.
You know, just a few questions like that I can feel it already, like shifting the energy in my body.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay. And then now I'm starting to feel excited instead of nervous.
Mm.
Right.
So what I just saw in that is a facing the fear, facing into the fear, being with the fear, not running from the fear,
Hmm.
allowed the excitement to also be there.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yep. Instead of the nervousness. Yep.
Yeah. So maybe the quote could go, what was it? Fear. Oh, fear is excitement without breath. So what if fear, I don't know how I was thinking. I was thinking of it as sort of like fear along with presence and full presence with the fear can turn into excitement,
Yeah.
and maybe breath too, right? Like, yeah, we can tend to hold our breath, but that holding our breath is a way to make the emotion try to go away, right? So
It's usually what we
we're
do to,
fully
yeah.
present.
Yeah. To avoid that.
Yeah.
It's a great mechanism of like getting it to leave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But presence, there's just nothing quite like presence for me. Like the
Yeah.
full presence with my fear,
Hmm.
and that takes breath to be fully present with things, right? So breath and presence could potentially, but at the same time, it's like, let's not need fear to change. But if it does,
Yeah.
it's fun too.
Yeah. The thing that helped me shift the most with all of the core story work and bringing presence to stuff was the thought that if I'm not going to sit in it, my inner child has to,
Oh, yeah.
and so every time something comes up for me, I'm like, well, my inner child's sitting in it anyway.
Yeah.
I could either go join him.
Yep. So he's not alone in
Yep.
it.
We
Yep.
could go work through this together, or I
Hmm.
could just let him get traumatized while I run.
It's so sad, especially when you can look at, especially when you have children, right?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
grandchildren or what have you, and you can look at how much you love that little 3-year-old,
Yeah.
and then no, you're leaving that little 3-year-old to go deal with that by himself without your presence.
Yeah.
Ow.
I And so it's
Yeah,
that one thought that just reminds me, oh no, let's go sit in this.
yeah, because he's
Let's,
dealing with it, even
I'm
if
not going to
you
wait
are
till
not.
tomorrow. Yep. I'm not going to wait till tomorrow. We're going to do it right now.
Yeah. And what tends to happen with children if they are left alone in things like this, right? With the big, intense stuff, is they tend to
Mhm.
develop behavior patterns that are destructive.
Mm.
It's just goes hand in hand.
Yeah. Yeah. Because they want to get out of it too.
They want to get out of it too, right? And so then if we're leaving our little child in that crap, that's going to come out in some form of a destructive behavior, either a physical behavior where you're going to find yourself doing something, or it'll be physical sickness, pain, something in your body.
Yeah.
But somehow that energy has to find its way to the surface. Just because you're not looking at it, or I'm not looking at it, doesn't mean it's not there and it's not going to find its way to the surface and in my life. And here's another thing too, Harm. Like, the things that we're trying to not look at and leaving our child to deal with, right? They still have a frequency. They have a frequency. That energy has a frequency. And that is also being projected out, creating some sort of a void or a frequency match for something to match that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So even if we're not looking at it, doesn't mean it's not doing stuff in our life, either doing damage or doing positive stuff, right?
Yeah, because our inner child is in control of what, our subconscious. At least,
Possibly.
I mean, because that's where, I mean, all of our traumas are kind of running the behind the scenes show.
Right.
And so if our child's just getting traumatized from different things that they're having to sit in because we're running,
yep,
then it's going to keep showing up behind the scenes and creating the narrative for our life.
Yep, until we can face it and go sit with that little child and be present with that little child and ask questions with that little child and show that child how to mature.
Yeah.
Mature, not grow up.
Yeah.
Mature, right? So that that child can feel confident, so that child can feel, oh yeah, I got somebody with me, I got somebody behind my back, I got this, I got this. It's like giving the child skills so the child can mature and know how to deal with this.
I wonder, this is just a wonderment. I wonder if our inner child is the ego.
Oh, that's an interesting thought. Tell me more.
Right? So, um, because if the ego is kind of running the show behind the scenes,
Mm-hmm.
just taking care of all the things we put it busy to do, kind of our subconscious, and that's kind of the same thing our inner child is doing.
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of makes me wonder if that's really what our ego is, and we're sitting there trying to push it away, and of course it wants to be in control.
Right.
If we're running out the door all the time and never facing the reality of what's there, and our ego or our inner child is the only one facing what's really there, of course they want to run the show. We're gone.
We're not even there. We're not in the driver's seat, so something else has to be in the driver's seat.
Of course it wants to be in the driver's seat. It's like, no, I'm the only one that's left here to run the show, so of course I'm good. Until you come back in and join me, I'm in control of this.
Yeah. I don't know. That's an interesting thought. I'm going to sit with that for a while and see what I feel about that. I've always seen the ego as separate, but that doesn't mean it is. And this is all semantics at this point, because regardless of what, something else besides you is running the show, right? And maybe the ego comes into play to rescue that child, to save that child, because you aren't showing up, right? I don't know, but I'm going to think about that. That's a very interesting thought.
It is an interesting thought. What I do like about it is that it takes off the resistance to the ego.
It helps the ego not become a bad thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's it's one of those thoughts that go up on a shelf. So I get enough other cool things next to them that I can pull back down and use
make sense of it. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
So what other things with questions?
I would like to talk a little bit about staying in the question a little bit more. So I've had the question from people. They'll say, what do you mean by not answering it? And I'm like, I live in question, right? Like I don't ever want to answer any of these questions, even if it feels like the answers come in, right? Like, say I was asking how amazing my life could be, and something came in that day that was really so amazing. I don't want to just stop answering that question. I mean, stop asking that question, right? I want to stay living in the question of how amazing can my life be, because it could always get better.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like you might get answers to what's on the door, what on the other side of the door of your fear, right? You might get some answers to that and you go, oh yeah, that's on the other side, right? And then you could take that answer and forevermore, that's what's on the other side of fear,
Yeah.
right? And that could be very limiting because what if there's way more than you ever knew on the other side of fear? But now you have answered it. Therefore, you have given the vacuum its food, right? And now
Uh,
it doesn't need to keep working in your behalf.
yeah. Um, Something I've seen with that. Let me see if I can pull it in. Dang it, it kind of slipped. Well, keep talking, it'll come back.
I'm like, okay, well, what do I want to say now?
Talk about what you were just talking about before, because
Yeah,
that's
so
what we're
I was talking about living in the question and not answering your own question because
okay.
once you answer it, it stops that vacuum from continuing to happen to occur in your life. It stops that tuning fork resonance, right? When you answer it, you go boom, there's your answer, boom, it goes away and it stops. If it fed it and now it doesn't continue doing it unless you ask again, right? Unless you're open again.
Yeah. Um, well, let's go down this path. It almost came back, but there was one piece that was like a huge aha in my brain.
Okay.
So let's say I'm standing at that door of fear. And if I ask more of a question like, what kind of world is on the other side of this door? Right? It leaves it open for me to explore that
Mm-hmm.
rather than, oh, that's what it is. That's what the piece was. So, okay. So this fear thing that I have with all social stuff, right? It's to me, it's this really big thing. Okay. Now, let's say I just, a genie showed up and I could just fix it like that.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the same as opening up the door and finding one answer and finding out it's a closet.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Right.
Because I fixed it. I fixed it really quick, which is what answering a question will do.
Okay.
But because I have such this big insecurity with it, or at least feel like it's this big insecurity, it's going to always be there as a reminder of what I
Mm,
can create,
I love it.
like how I can open up this into this new doorway and like, wow,
Right.
all these amazing things. And then I step into them and I get a little insecure and I'm like, ooh, but that just offers a new ability to ask another question.
Yes.
So it's kind of this reminding thing in the back of your mind, like, okay, here's how we're going to like shift into a new, beautiful world. And we're going to remind you through your fear every single time.
What a huge gift your fear is.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And even if we were to answer the question, that fear's going to be there again the next time to
Yeah.
give you another opportunity. So it's not like the end of the world if we answer our questions either.
Right. Or if we
Yeah.
forget for a second, like,
Yeah.
oh, that's right. What am I staying open to? I don't remember.
Well, the
Your,
fear will show you.
your
The,
stuff will come
yep.
back
And
and
your
it will
stuff will
remind
come back.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, very faithfully. It's your very faithful friend that is here to make sure you get what you want to get.
So then staying in the question is almost like a commitment to yourself to
Mm,
remind yourself to be in the question
yeah.
instead
Besides
of
the fact that it's so much fun to
uh-huh.
live in the energy of question, right?
Yeah.
That frequency of what is possible beyond what I've ever thought.
Yeah.
What is possible? That energy is so much fun for me to be in that space. And then it's like all these other ideas and all these things come in and then it's like, oh, this is a whole magical world I didn't even know existed before I even knew how to ask questions, right? And now it's like I get to live in this big wide world of all possibility forever. That's exciting. It's a really
That's awesome.
exciting energy to live in for
Yeah.
me.
So what's interesting is I'm noticing back when I heard you talking about questions a while ago, um, you kind of expressed it from the same place,
Uh-huh.
but I couldn't quite understand it. I couldn't quite get it.
Okay.
Didn't get it at the same way you were getting it. And
Right.
so therefore that's what kind of gets me to just put it on a shelf.
Oh,
Right. So
right.
I'm kind of wondering, knowing that maybe there's another way to bring um, some other possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the place you're talking about, the magical fairyland that you're talking about, might be way too large of a jump for somebody to get to.
That's true, especially if they're beginner level.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If
for
they're
sure.
already starting down that path, you're explaining what's in that door behind all the questions, behind fear and wait. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm like, guys,
That's kind of like,
I found heaven. I found heaven. It's this way. Come on, come on. And they're going, what? We have to walk through hell before we can get there? You said we were going to heaven. This doesn't feel like
this
heaven.
doesn't look like heaven. You're like, yeah, but just this person lives in the clouds. Right? And so I think it's easy to grab a few judgments and a few things like that, right? But one of the things that I've noticed right out of the gate, and I started feeling this today through some of our conversations, is how easily your energy can shift.
Hmm.
You
With a
know,
question.
with just one question, you can go from a feeling of not being in a great place to, hey, at least I'm not quite in as bad a place anymore.
Yeah. Yep.
You know,
Like it can open up even just like this.
yeah, which gives us some power, and it's like, okay, there's some good things there. And then at the same time, we also don't want to run from that feeling.
Right. Because
You
you
know,
can totally ask questions and run from the feelings too.
yeah, let me turn into a conscious creator full of affirmations so that I don't have to experience my life.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And we don't want to do
That's
that.
definitely not what I'm inviting you into.
Totally.
I'm inviting you into some of the deepest, darkest places within your psyche
Yeah.
and to go and be present with them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then also play with questions
Yeah.
because they
Also,
feel so darn good.
yeah, they do. They open up a new form of excitement, a new form of something that can come in.
Right, exactly. So that you don't get stuck in hell.
Yeah.
You don't have to stay stuck in the deep dark places. But you're also, because you're facing into them and being present with them, you're no longer scared of them. Like little by little, you get to where you're not so scared of them. And you start to see that hell is only hell because you've been perceiving it as hell. And it's actually filled with friends.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
okay.
Isn't that a thought?
I know. Shame is okay.
Yeah.
Fear is okay. Sadness is okay.
Yeah. They're even better than okay. They've got a lot to offer.
They have a lot to offer me. They are
Yeah.
my biggest teachers.
Yeah. Yeah. They're the ones that get us to sit down and go in and like bring presence to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because it's easy for the other ones. I can bring presence to joy. Right? How do I not bring presence to joy?
Unless it gets too big. There's a lot of people that, me included, I've noticed, like I've been really working with some of my food challenges, right? And I've noticed when the main times that I want food when I'm not hungry is when I'm dealing with a really intense emotion. But I'm doing so much better with that. Or if I'm really, really happy or feeling really, really expanded more than what I typically am, then I'm like, ooh, what can I eat? What can I eat? What can I eat? And I'm not even hungry, right? And
Yeah.
I'm looking at that as sort of the same thing as feeling a lot of shame now. It's like, can I just be present with that expanded feeling
Yeah.
instead of trying to do something to bring myself back down?
Yeah. I've recently started reaching some levels like what you're talking about. Like I'm starting to relate with that of where I'm like, oh, I'm feeling so good. Like I have got to put something in me that's going to calm this down.
Because it feels so damn good.
Like we got to get some ice cream, some cake, like something that's going to like make my stomach hurt so that I can calm this down.
I can calm down my joy.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's interesting. The more I can sit with that and bring presence to it, in theory, the more I should be able to hold of it.
I think so.
But here's a wonderment. If I am pointing that joy is like better than all the others, am I not honoring joy?
By
That's
thinking
like,
it's better.
yeah, that's like saying, shame is worse than all the others.
Yeah.
It's
Well, I
just the
wouldn't,
opposite direction,
right. It's just the opposite direction.
right?
Yeah. I
I'm
wouldn't
just
say
kind of
that
thinking
joy
out
is
loud.
the best.
Yeah, I'm just kind of thinking out loud and from kind of some of my own things of
Mm,
if I do look at joy as being like, well, joy is the ultimate place to be, and I want to be there, and I want to like bring presence to joy so that I can feel more joy, right?
right.
Then maybe I'm there again, missing the point of feeling the feeling,
Mhm. Yeah,
you know,
I think you're right
because
on.
this too shall pass. The
This too
joy
shall
will,
pass.
the joy will end, and then something else will step in place.
Hmm.
And the only thing that we should be putting that much focus on is presence.
Yeah. Yep.
Just more presence and presence and
Yep.
presence.
And can I view shame and joy
As the same.
as the same? It's just one friend that looks a little bit different than another, right?
Can I can I have joy when shame knocks on my door?
Yeah. I love that one.
Yeah.
That's a great question. Can I have joy when shame knocks on my door?
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Because
shame is bringing you a big gift,
oh
massive
yeah.
gift.
Yeah.
This entire core story stuff was birthed from my willingness to face my shame
Mm,
without turning away until my shame became my friend.
yeah.
Like, right? Like, this has been huge, 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 huge and life altering for me, of course, but it's blessing so many people. And I feel like I'm finally stepped into doing the work that I came to do on planet Earth, right? Like, all because I was willing to go face shame when shame showed up my door and wouldn't freaking leave.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, it came in the door and it parked its butt on my couch and it did not leave. It's like, I'm here to stay. And at that point, I looked at it as a stinky, disgusting
Uh-huh.
animal that was in my house, making it all icky and dirty.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. It was my
No.
best friend in disguise.
Yeah. Just waiting, holding space for you to just love it. I love that.
Yeah,
It's cool.
yeah.
Hmm.
Seems like there was.
Um,
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask you if you had any other pieces that you're aware of. I was gonna jump down a different rabbit hole if you didn't.
No, go ahead. I love your rabbit
Okay.
holes.
So this is a whole nother rabbit hole, but it's still around questions. So a question opens up the void,
Hmm.
which is kind of what I see as like the Big Bang is like.
Oh,
Something at the Big Bang that blew my mind, and it's either true or it's not.
dang it. You're
Nonetheless, it
breaking
was
up,
a fun
Hiram.
fact.
You're kind of breaking up a minute.
Can you hear?
No.
How about now?
Okay, now your picture's clear. Everything looks pretty good. Okay, everything seems to be
Are
fine
we
then.
okay?
So, yeah. So, how about you start over? Are you
Okay.
willing to do that?
Yep. Sure. Okay. So the let's see. Okay. So the story that I heard about the Big Bang
Mm-hmm.
was that it didn't start from one location in the universe.
Okay, that's
It
interesting.
started from everywhere, all
Oh,
at the same time,
huh.
and it's expanding outward,
Right.
right? And so now in my mind, I kind of have a vision picture of that's what a void is. You open up a void, it's just you're opening up the universe, and it just naturally it just expands. Once there's a void, so once consciousness stepped into the universe, it had to get filled with something,
Mm,
right? So that's what the Big Bang was: is consciousness stepped in and caused life to just explode forth, right?
mm-hmm.
So that's my vision picture of it. But that's how I see the void. As soon as I
Okay.
open it up, it's just it almost fills in from the inside out,
Wow.
right? And it just fills in. It can't help it. It just fills in.
Yeah.
Um, and so questions open it up and cause it to get filled in.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so that's one of the reasons we're on as dense of a planet as we are. It's because we keep opening up and it fills in and it keeps filling in. And every time So my wonderment around this is with the whole new age thing, there's an aim up through back to, like, we're in 3D and we got to get out and we got to go up to 5D and we got to go up to 7D and we got to get higher and higher and higher out of density.
Mm-hmm.
But what if we're meant to be going this way?
Deeper
And
in.
every time we ask a question, we go deeper and deeper and deeper into the density of what we're creating,
Hmm.
you know? And it just, I don't know. The thought that I like about it is that it brings and anchors us into 3D and gives us more of a purpose here rather than trying to get out of the experience we're in and back to somewhere where it feels better.
Right, right. Almost like in 5D, it's going to feel better. So
Yeah.
let's hurry up and get to 5D. But what if 5D isn't, I don't even know how to say it.
It's not
What
where
if
the
you
magic is.
only, what if you only reach 5D by being fully in 3D? And there's nowhere really to get. I don't know if I'm saying it the way that I'm seeing it, but it's sort of like trying to escape um, shame so that you can have joy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like you're not ever going to have full on joy, not the deep, satisfying, rich joy
Yeah.
if you can't be with shame. And
Yeah.
so what if it's the same? I don't know one way or the other, but what if it's similar with 3D and 5D, right? Instead of trying to escape 3D, what if we were able to be fully in 3D and that's what helped us to also reach 5D?
Yeah. Um,
I don't think that's what you were saying though, huh?
it's not quite what I'm saying, but I'm liking it's there's a similar concept in not running from 3D.
Mhm.
Like, we don't want to be running from 3D. And I guess what I'm saying is that we came from 5D into 3D
Mhm.
so that we could experience more, a deeper, richer fullness of what we really are.
Right.
And the more density we create by opening up and expanding questions and just opening up that field, the
Uh-huh.
denser and denser and denser we get, which is the fullness.
I guess I don't quite understand what you mean by dense. Like I
Um,
can see it in my brain what you're talking about where like when you're creating space and then that space is filled, right? I can see it's more matter and more matter and more matter, right?
well, where do I create the space? If I take the table that's sitting in front of me and if I open it up and then it just fills in,
Mhm.
magic, nothing. And then I open it up more and it fills in, like it's getting denser and denser and denser
Okay.
and
Okay.
denser and denser and denser. But the liveliness of it, the richness of it is getting more and more and more every time we dig in and open something up. It just expands the fullness of what we can experience.
That's really cool. I've never had this thought before.
And so what if it started out at 5D and we just started to, like, open it up a little all the way down until it started to get a little dense and it was like, ooh, look what we can create with this density, and look at how much more full and enriched this is as we just keep going. And that's the beauty, is going this direction, not this.
Not back up to 5D because I've often had a thought like there's a reason that I'm here, right? Like there's
Yeah.
got to be a reason that I'm here in 3D instead of like so I spent many years wanting to just die and get out of this 3D experience and go back to wherever we came
Yeah.
from, right?
Yeah.
Because I have thought that it would be so much better. Um, and now I'm not so much in that place, but what I'm hearing you say is like, what if it, what if you can't go that way to get it better? What if dying doesn't solve the problem? What if going deeper into the 3D experience?
And it doesn't solve the problem, it creates more wonder.
Yes, creates more goodies, more fullness, more richness, more aliveness, more everything for us.
Yeah. We can always go back up and start over. But once we get
Right.
up there, our choice is going to be to come this way because we know that's where we're going to receive the fullness of. and the richness of everything.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. This is quite a thought I'm going to be pondering for a while.
Yeah.
This is one of the reasons why I love having conversations with you, is because you really help my mind to like dive into those deep places. I love it.
Yeah, that one's kind of a fun one.
That is a fun one to think about. What I saw was, when you were talking, I saw it sort of like, maybe at one level you're doing that with the sand. You're moving the
Mhm.
sand, right? And then it fills in. And then at another level, it's like maybe clay. You're doing the clay and you're moving the clay, right? And then underneath the clay, and you can build with each one of these, right? You can build with sand, you can build with a clay. Then the next one might be like rock, right? Or shell, right? Shell. And you're like, oh, this is getting even more rich. Ooh, what can I build with this, right? And then you dig even deeper and it's like this solid granite, maybe, right? And then you can build all kinds of stuff with granite, right? And then what's beyond that? I have no idea. But
Yeah, as it gets
that's what I
denser
saw
and denser.
as it
Yeah.
gets denser and denser.
And then so kind of a vision picture around like
Diamond, crystal. Would crystal be, you know what I'm saying? Like, ooh,
yeah,
what's possible
right.
with crystal? We could have crystal cities, like
Yeah, and so maybe, ooh, that's a good thought. Maybe the ascension isn't this direction. Maybe the ascension is going into more of a crystalline structure. Like once we get dense enough, that is the natural state of it. We will turn into like crystal. And eventually in time, we'll dig ourselves all the way around till we come back down this way.
potentially, yeah. I don't know. Gosh, I don't
Like
like all of
through
this.
all the dimensions and back down.
Yeah,
Because that's the kind of like the loop of everything in life anyway, is that it's this whole
Taurus.
torus field, you know? And so that's a thought. But here's a vision picture for like opening up the sand.
Mm-hmm.
Like so imagine opening the sand and all the sand that you opened stayed there, but then from the center of that void, it got filled in with sand again. And now there's that
More.
much more sand.
Right.
And eventually, like the more that the denser it gets, all of a sudden that starts turning into more solid structure,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
It just comes from, and that's what the questions do.
Yes.
We don't take from anything. We open up a void and we get filled with more life,
Yeah.
more of something that was never there until we opened the question.
Yeah. It's like seeds, and everything in the universe, like or in nature, multiplies in abundance, right? And it's the same thing with questions. It's like you ask one little question, but already there's 1,000 different opportunities that are heading your way,
Yeah.
right? 1,000 matches for that heading your way.
Yeah.
And it comes in way better than you could have imagined. At least that's
Mhm.
been my experience. It doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily, I don't want to give people the idea that you ask one question and it's all automatically going to be all there. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to give people that idea. But
Why
it's
would
like
you
these
want it
little
to be there in
steps.
one question?
Huh?
Why would you want it to be there in one question?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know. There wouldn't be that the fun in that, would there?
We would lose the experience of life
Yeah.
because there's so much joy in the uncovering. There's so
There
much
really
joy in doing
is.
this. What's in there?
Wow! Look what
Oh,
it filled
what's in
in this
there?
time.
You know,
I
like
love it.
what's going to fill in?
What
Yeah,
a fabulous visual.
yeah, I like that. So then, back to asking questions. There's two questions that I'm seeing. One avenue of questions would be um, kind of bringing my energy back to a better place.
Mm.
I found myself in a rut, and how can this rut become a better rut than the one I'm in? Essentially, something along those lines, right?
Right, right.
And then the next line of questioning would be I'm not in a rut, but I want to experience more of something in life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of where the affirmation questions come in. Maybe. Well, maybe they're all affirmation questions, um, but that's kind of the two different lines of questioning that I'm seeing. What
Okay.
about you? What are you
So,
feeling?
so what I'm hearing you say is that, like, for somebody who's like really stuck, they might be asking different questions that are more attainable, more reachable in their mind than somebody who's out of the rut but just is wanting to gain more
Yeah.
and greater, right?
Yeah.
Because like when let's imagine like if you're depressed, okay, like massively depressed, maybe the only thing you could even reach for is a question that's like, okay, can I pull myself out of bed?
Yeah.
Can I just go get a shower?
Yeah.
Right?
What kind of goodness can come from my life if I get off my bed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that might be the level that you could reach at that point, right?
Hmm.
And so ask a question or two around that level. Yes.
Yeah.
And then yeah, I hadn't seen it quite in levels, but it might serve to look at it that way for some people.
But then there's some of the, I'm just trying to relate to a lot of different um, possibilities here.
Hmm.
Um, it seems like most of our conversation has just been tailored around just a couple of questions.
Yeah.
I want to open the doorway to what other what questions can we be asking to
Got it.
expand our awareness?
Got it. Got it. Got it.
Like
Yes.
in the depths of depression or the depths of anxiety or like the
Right.
depth of something that's so intense we really need to get out and stabilize our body so we can think clearly.
Right.
There's some really basic questions to move that energy.
Hmm.
But then, yeah, go ahead.
One of my favorite questions to ask when I don't know what to ask is what would be the best question that I could ask right now for myself, right? So I would use that one on in any place, in any locate, like whatever level or experience you're dealing with, right? Like if you're in bed depressed,
Yeah.
or if your body's in so much pain that you don't know what to do with it, right? Like and nothing's working. If you can just ask that one question, what's the best question that I could ask right now that's going to
And
support me?
here's what I like about that is that it opens people up to their intuition.
Oh, yes. Yes, 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 yes.
It might be something that you take for granted, that's just like a normal part of life.
That I take for granted.
Maybe not take for granted per
Yeah,
se,
no,
but
I get it.
I mean, I know for me sometimes I'll tell people that just like, well, just ask, and
Yeah.
I get this
And like,
look.
but then how do I hear the answer?
What does that mean?
Yeah.
Ask who?
Ask
I'm
who?
like, just ask. I don't know. Just just do that part.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard to like really explain it out, but essentially all it is your intuition.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. It opens you to your own intuition.
Yeah, and so I love that. Um, so more of in a place where, okay, so life is going really well. Things are going really well in your life.
Hmm.
Now, what kinds of questions might be really fun to ask?
Yeah. Well, that one. What would be a fun question to ask? What can I ask right now that would open up life to be even more, help me thrive even more fully, right?
Yeah.
Like, that might be
So
fun.
so money would probably always be one that pops in
Probably. Like
for most of
for
everybody. I
most
would assume.
everybody. Yeah.
So what's a great money question?
Oh, let's see. So, dang it, I've created an entire money deck, but it's the
Mm.
money relationship deck, right? So I
Ooh.
have a bunch of questions, but they're not all here yet, right? They're on my computer, actually being printed right now as we speak. Um, but let's see. If I were doing good and wanted more, I would be like asking. Oh, here's one that I put on the cards. I just remembered it. What is how can I support money to show up in its divine purpose,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
or or how could I be blessed more fully today by money, or how could I see deeper into money? What is the truth of money, right? Like, is money an energy? Is it a physical, you know what I mean? Like, because we think of money as paper, but what is the truth of money? What is money actually wanting to get to, right? And is there a way that I can play with money more effortlessly and easily and have more fun, right? Is
Yeah.
there a way I can bless more people's lives with or without money?
Yeah. One that I like is what does money want me to spend it on today?
I love that one. Yeah.
Because the thing I like about it is it recognizes money for being a consciousness
Uh-huh.
that it will let me know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And like what authentic dance could money and I do together?
yeah.
Right? Like
Mm,
authentic, like what this is where my brain's going currently in
yeah.
life with money, right? It's like what is wanting to come through me around money,
Yeah.
right?
What could we build together?
What could we money and I build together? How
Yeah.
could we show up in the world in a way that's going to be more dynamic than I even knew was possible?
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. So that's a good. So those are some great money ones.
Hmm.
Some great relationship ones. Um,
Yeah, I would say one of my very first relationship ones would be to ask something like, how could I show up from essence in my relationship, or how could I show up with my partner from a place of authenticity without trying to fix them or change them, or how could I create closeness with my partner without the need to try to always be projecting my shit on them or trying to fix them, right? Only I do try to keep my questions in the positive as
yeah.
much as possible.
Yeah. And that makes sense. So here's, I'm kind of wondering um, if there's a format to be created for people to be able to just generate and ask a question.
Hmm.
You know, I
Like
mean,
almost like a handout that could help them.
yeah,
I
something.
like
I mean,
that.
I get that it's probably going to start with how or what or
Right.
but almost like a guideline to get their mind thinking
Uh-huh.
on a certain pathway.
Mm-hmm.
You know, um, yeah,
Yeah.
how blank blank blank. Um, or,
Yeah.
or
I'll be
maybe what we do is grab a problem and the problem gets turned into a question.
Oh, I love it. How can
So
you turn problems into questions?
yeah.
Or even like you were talking about in the beginning, how could you turn the judgment into a question?
Hmm. Yeah. Just so anytime any kind of an issue or situation or anything comes into your life, it's just a moment to flag your consciousness like, hey, we can create a question.
Yeah.
So let's create a question around this.
Problem turnarounds.
Yeah.
So I'm already starting to see some handouts, right, in my brain of maybe potentially creating some handouts for people to
Uh-huh.
help them turn their problems, their judgments into questions, as
Mm.
well as just how to formulate a question.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the formulation of the question is, it seems pretty basic,
Hmm.
but I think it does for the most part get to stay inside of the positive.
Hmm. Well, if you want to be vibrating at that positive frequency, that's going to attract. Like, what do you want to create? Right? You want to create more of your husband being an ass. You know what I'm saying? Like,
You want to
you want
create something to stop doing the thing it's doing.
right?
Actually doing more of the thing you're wanting stopped, you know?
Yeah,
Or do we want to actually formulate what we want
right.
instead of what we don't want?
We want to formulate what we want, not what we don't want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of a key component in there. But that's kind of the biggest piece that I'm seeing.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a big piece. Um, yeah, the what asking like what and how versus why. Oftentimes, why. There's been a few why questions that I'm like, that's a good one, right? But most why questions are usually
They
uh,
sound big to me.
they can sound victimy, but usually it's trying to satisfy more of an ego desire than it is
Yeah.
like to satisfy the meaning or the like to feed your brain thoughts versus
Mhm.
actually having the transformation you can experience.
Yeah.
And
That,
so yeah, there are definitely some why questions that would totally work, but I would suggest keeping it to what, to how, you know what I mean?
yeah.
And then I like to just get creative with some of them, right? Like, ooh, how can I ask this question, or how can I write this question out in a way that I've never written a question before? You know what I mean? Like I'm to the point where I want to play with it like that, you know?
get really creative.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I love the ones that you sent earlier that we were looking at. Those were really great.
good. Yeah. And most of them will start with what or how or that kind of a thing. Um, yeah. And so I could definitely create some handouts for that. And I might even reach out to you to get your support if you're open to that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
That's cool.
that's awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, does that feel like everything that wants to be talked about today?
Boy, I think so. That was probably,
An hour and a half?
was it an hour and a half? I was
Yep.
gonna say that. It
Hey,
felt like
that's a short conversation that we have.
yeah, I know. We only covered one topic.
I know we didn't go on a whole rabbit chase
Yeah.
down many holes.
No,
Yeah.
that felt really great though, and I feel expanded in my own awareness around it too, and it
Yeah,
gives me
me too.
places to like to go and focus and how to use that in with the core story, and
Hmm.
so I feel excited with it.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Questions are some of my favorite to explore. So I really
Yeah,
appreciate you showing up today, Harmon,
yeah,
and
I loved it. It was
exploring
my
this with
pleasure.
me.
Yeah,
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you
yeah,
for being
yeah.
here. All right, and thank everybody else for watching. And I hope you got some goodies. And if you have questions, post questions, and we'll do our best to answer in YouTube. Okay, thank you. Have a good day. Bye.
Yeah.